TreVeyon Henderson has the right mindset heading into his final year at Ohio State.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network here on Tuesday, May 14th in the year 2024. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast, and I'd like to thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen or first watch of every single day. TreVeyon Henderson is one of those guys that knows all eyes are going to be on him week 1, game 2, game 3, and all of the games that Ohio State is playing in the fall. He is one of those guys that is extremely talented, that can play himself into being a high draft pick, one of the first running backs taken in the 2025 draft. All of that stuff is great. But if he doesn't have the right mindset or the proper approach to the upcoming season, all that stuff means absolutely nothing. But according to Ryan Day, Henderson has the right mindset and is taking the right approach to the upcoming season, which is why this year could be a big year for Henderson and all of the running backs at Ohio State. Think about what TreVeyon Henderson has been to Ohio State throughout his career for the Buckeyes. A good back, sometimes a really good back, shows that he has some elite qualities, but has struggled at times to be healthy. That's not his fault. I'm going to be the first person here to say some things like that. That is not his fault. Sometimes injuries are going to happen. Some guys get hurt more than others. Lathan Ransom has been hit with the injury bug during his career at Ohio State as well. So no, it's not the player's fault. But think about what that means if he stays healthy. If his mindset is the same, if he takes the proper approach to the upcoming season, the offense could be a whole lot better. You could realistically have 2 running backs that have over 1,000 yards in a season. And think about what that would mean for a Buckeye running game that has been an issue for Ohio State over the past few years. And in 2020, post J.K. Dobbins, if it wasn't for Trey Sermon going off at the end of the year, buddy, 2020 would have been a disaster in the run game. Yeah, Master T got some run early. Trey Sermon was getting his feet under him and learning the offense. I understand all that. But if that bad boy did not go off, we would literally be talking about a team under Ryan Day that has had a poor, less than stellar, and not meeting the standard at Ohio State run game. That would be what we would talk about. But what are we talking about? A team in a run game that has been – run game was subpar last year, not up to standard. A team that has some good running backs, some really good running backs, and if they just do their job, and if the approach from the leader, the head man, is this way, and Henderson, as he is a leader in the room, whoo-wee, everybody on that schedule better watch out. Now, Ryan Day had made a very specific and interesting statement about TreVeyon Henderson this offseason that I think speaks volumes about Henderson and how he is approaching the leadership role for the Buckeyes this year. Quote, I think TreVeyon's leadership so far this year as he's transitioned into his 4th year has been tremendous. The way that he's gone about his work, the way that he's holding guys accountable, he's got a different look in his eye, and I think that's important, end quote. The fact that he has a different look in his eye is very telling and a very specific statement about what Ryan Day currently sees. He didn't have to say that. He didn't have to say there was a different look in his eye. He could have just said, hey, leadership's been good, doing this, doing that, could have just stayed on that path and made 3 or 4 sentences about Henderson. But no, he wanted to pinpoint and discuss and say he's got a different look in his eye, and I think that's important. This is Day talking. And personally, not only does Day think that's important, I think it's important. I think Henderson needs a different approach. I think Henderson needed to bulk up. That's the one thing I think that people forget about Henderson. And I don't think this is all about the injuries. I think that just his body and his frame sometimes got hurt a little bit more than other players, but he needed to bulk up. And this is something I was even saying heading into last season. The boy needed to gain a few LBs. Not the bad LBs, to gain a few of the good LBs. And he's gained a few of the good LBs because when I saw him during the spring game, one of the first things I noticed, and I probably said to my wife at the time, she gets all them nerd notes just thrown at her left, right. right, this, that. She gets all of them thrown her way. I was probably saying, hey, he's gained some weight. I mean, them good LBs. Now look at James Peoples, the true freshman, saying, oh, he built different. Now, I was one of those guys when it came to Dallin Hayden, and when he first came to Ohio State, I was like, oh, he doesn't look like a regular true freshman. Well, James Peoples does not look like a regular young running back in college. Dallin Hayden didn't either, but James Peoples just looks different physically than other backs in college. And so physically, he's ready. But Henderson's one of those guys that's had to work at it. And sometimes when you're hurt, you can't do the things you want to do in a healthy way to gain the LBs you want to gain during your football career. And that's just the way things have gone for Henderson. I'm not here to try to throw shade or talk negative about him, just shed light on the reality of the situation. So Henderson, his approach, but that leadership part is going to be so key. I want to talk more about that later in the show, but the fact that the leadership part is one thing Dave touched on, and that his leadership so far this year, as he transitioned into his fourth year, has been tremendous. Hey, this room that needs a leader, this room that has a lot of young guys, this room that has a newcomer, this room that has a lot of inexperienced players, this room that has a lot of players that makes it a very interesting dynamic for Carlos Lockwood. Has a new RB coach too. So many different angles to pull on and to touch on and talk about. But everybody's looking at number 32. If number 32 can get things going, if number 32 can get things rocking and rolling, if number 32 can figure this thing out in his last year at Ohio State, y'all better watch out. I have talked about Henderson and the vision that he needs to improve on. He's improved on his vision. The physicality and the ability to not go down that first contact, he's worked on that and done that as well. His ability to be a better runner inside the tackles and not just be an outside guy or one cut and go guy. He has done that. Henderson has done a lot of things throughout his career at Ohio State that have made him better. And at one time, I was a guy saying Henderson's not this, Henderson's not that. I was not on the Henderson train. I am on the Henderson train right now. Absolutely. I believe with the addition of Quinshon Judkins and the leadership of Carlos Lockwood and the experience of Will Howard and Ryan Day's experience knowing these players, I believe this will be the best year TreVeyon Henderson has ever had at Ohio State running the football in college football. Now, I'm not saying statistically he's going to run for 2,000 rushing yards. I am not going that far. Even if Judkins was not here, I probably would still not go that far, even with extra games. Extra games probably. But I will say this, though. This boy about to make y'all look foolish if y'all not ready for him. This young man about to make y'all look silly if y'all not ready for him. And if the good LBs he's put on have made him so much better physically that he can withstand the hits of the bruising linebackers and the bruising D tackles, the defensive linemen, y'all better watch out. Y'all might not just need to watch out for Henderson. Y'all also need to watch out for Quinshon Judkins because these two guys make a dynamic duo. Is this a good situation? And are Judkins and Henderson on the same page at Ohio State? We'll dive into that next. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, make the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. One thing about Ohio State's running back room is this a dynamic that most teams would not be able to handle. And honestly, I don't really think a couple years ago Ryan Day would even have entertained. Maybe he would have entertained it, but I don't know if he would have gone as far as he did, accepting a transfer of the caliber of player as Quinshon Judkins when you already got Henderson on the roster. And a couple years ago, you had Mayan Williams, who was also a dog. So I don't know if this would have been the right move at that time. But it's the move now. And I think it's a valid question to ask. Are these two athletes on the same page? Because honestly, if I'm Judkins, I want the rock. If I'm Henderson, I want that bad boy too. So if I'm these two guys, do I truly want to be a guy that splits carries with another guy that was a starter at another school in his best year at college football, which was his freshman year? He rushed for more yards than I ever have in a single season in college football. Do I really want that guy to come here and take some of those carries from me and some of those touches from me? Do I truly want that? Henderson and Judkins, this is a conversation I truly believe in their head they had to think about for a little bit. But honestly, Ryan Day spoke about it and touched on the fact of what it was like when Ryan Day went to TreVeyon Henderson about Quinshon Judkins being in the portal. I'll dive into it, but they're on the same page, and Ryan Day talks about it. Let's see what Ryan Day had to say about these guys being on the same page when Judkins showed interest to transfer into Ohio State. Quote, when it first happened and Quinshon went into the portal, the first thing was talking to TreVeyon. And what are your thoughts? And he was unbelievable. If you think it helps the team coach, then let's do it. And then talking to Quinshon and saying, TreVeyon is here and he's coming back. And he said, well, I'd love to go play with him. I just think that both of their approaches are that they can get each other better. But it all started with TreVeyon, end of quote. Think about the level of respect that Ryan Day has for TreVeyon Henderson. Think about the type of coach Ryan Day is showing everyone that he is right now. Some guys are all about, hey, bringing in all the top talent, not caring about what it does to your position room that the guy's going to go into or what it does to your locker room. Some guys are like, hey, come here and we will figure it out. And honestly, sometimes it's not a bad thing. Just come here and we'll figure it out on the back end, not the front end. That's not really a bad approach to take at times. That's not Ryan Day. Ryan Day is simply a coach right now that is saying, hey, man, I got to talk to my guy. I know you're in the portal. I know that you're talented. I know you want to come here, but I got to talk to my guy. And if one of my guys is not on board with it, it's going to be a starter, been here for 3 years, going into his 4th year, and he's not leaving, he is staying, then it might not be the best thing for Ohio State. Think about what Ryan Day is telling everybody. This might not be it for us, even though Judkins is that dude at the running back position. He truly is. That's wisdom. That's a lot of faith. That's experience. That's also getting advice from other coaches that Ryan Day talks to that are in his corner. Man, that's huge. But for Quinshon Judkins to be on the same page as Henderson and saying, hey, I'm cool with it. I'd love to go play with him, was Judkins' thought. Think about how rare that is. Think about how abnormal it is for guys to sit up here and say, well, I want to go play with him, and I think he wants to go play with me. But then the more you think about it, what does that mean? Well, I'm used to getting 18 to 22 carries a game, not touches, carries. Well, that might be 9 to 10 carries a game because I'm splitting time with this other guy who's really, really good who will get drafted down the road. Whoa. Is this really something I want to embark upon? Is this really something that I want? These are questions that I believe people are asking themselves. That people would be asking themselves if they were in Judkins' shoes or if they were in Henderson's shoes. I truly believe that. But I also believe this, and I think everybody might be on the same page with this thought. I also believe that these guys realize something TreVeyon Henderson and Evan Pryor realized early on before they came to Ohio State. Yeah, college football is great. It's fun. You make a lot of money playing college football. Legally, illegally, there's still illegal money being made right now. And trust me, that's the topic literally for another day because I don't want to touch on that today. But no matter if you're making the money, you're getting education, a free education if you're on scholarship, which is huge. Let's not lose sight on that part. I'll get back to this topic here in a second. Let's not lose sight that these athletes are getting a FREE, that spells free education. Many people out here are up here paying student loans in their late 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s. Why? Because they got that much to pay back. And the way that this system is currently made up, that's what they're doing. These guys are getting a free education. I know we're playing college football, and I'm talking about college football, and I know that there's a scholarship limit, and they just added a walk-on punter to Ohio State who might get some academic money, maybe get enough to be a full ride. I'm not sure. But look, in the midst of all this college football mess, people have forgotten this is a free education. Let's not take that lightly. Let's not lose sight on how important that is. Not just for the fact of not having student loans. Think about just how expensive school is and all the things that come with that. Free? Buddy, that is huge. It's also huge that these guys are on the same page. I don't know if I would be if I was Henderson or Judkins. I ain't gonna lie to you about that. I have no idea. Why? Because I want mine too. If you're going to tell me that I'm going to go from hosting, I get whatever, I have an occupation, and I'm used to X, which is a certain amount. Boss comes to me and say, "Hey, we got somebody else coming in you want to work with, and here's Y. This is the new amount, and Y is just about half of X about what I used to be doing." And I'm like, wait. I'm used to X, doing X. This is what I want to do. Now you're saying the thing that I love, I want to do half of that because of this new guy. First off, I'm thinking I'm going to get less money on my paycheck. First off, that's natural. But also number two, what if I'm not doing enough? What if I get bored? What if some of the things, well, we believe, that's a good thought there. We believe this is the best thing for the business, for the company. Great, cool. But is it the best thing for you? And Henderson and Judkins realize this is the best thing for the team. Putting self aside, and it's the best thing for the team, but also I think it's the best thing for them as individuals. Why? Because down the road, there's going to be a game in December, another game in December, another game in December, possibly 3 games in December, and then another game in January. You could possibly be playing 4 games in the playoffs. Now, I think the Buckeyes will probably play 3, not 4. But let's just say they don't win the Big Ten Conference Championship. Oh, that'd be so weird. Don't want to talk about that right now. But let's just say it doesn't happen, and they end up hosting a playoff game, and then playing another playoff game, then all Final Four, and playing another playoff game, and then all Natty playing another playoff game. The fact that they're going to have about half the amount of touches than what they're used to, their bodies will be better served and prepared for the long haul down the road with an extended playoff. And also, I bet you, these guys are happy. Well, Judkins technically has another year, has a couple more years left to play. But I bet you Henderson's going to be happy because think about if you're a running back and you get battered and bruised every single day, and all of a sudden you're saying, oh, well, in a couple of years, you're going to go from 12-team playoff to a 14. Them young bucks at Ohio State that are toting that rock. Woo! I hope y'all ready for that beatdown. I hope y'all ready for that beating. Why? Because 14 will go to 16 and 20 and 24. Next thing you know, they're going to have a super league and break off from the NCAA. And what does that mean? More chaos in this sport. This sport's so chaotic, and we still love it. I also love one big factor that pertains to the young running backs at Ohio State. I'll tell you what it is next. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen or first watch of every single day. when it comes to these young bucks in the RB room at Ohio State, there's three guys that come to my mind. Now, one guy's been there a little bit longer than the others, but he was hurt last year. Literally only has 2 carries. Think about 66 rushing yards and 1 tutty. That's off the top of the dome. Didn't even look that up. Sometimes, for some reason, numbers stick in my brain. My wife was like, how do you do that? I don't know. I'm just wired that way, which is why I remember TC Coffey's career stats at Ohio State. You don't believe me? Look it up. Google it. Go to sportsreference.com. Come back at me, tweet at me, hit the DM, email, whatever it may be, and let your boy know that he is correct. If I'm wrong, let me know I'm wrong. But many of y'all will sit up here and say, Jay, how you do that? I don't know. It's just the way my brain is wired. But TC Coffey's been there for a little bit longer than Sam Williams-Dixon and James Peoples. Peoples and Williams-Dixon are the newcomers, true freshmen that will be, they're probably what? Williams-Dixon's probably 5. Trying to figure out if RB3 is a tie between Coffey and Peoples. Not really sure. But what you're saying is none of them have really played that much. So what does this mean for the young running backs at Ohio State? They're in a great situation. None of them, Coffey, Peoples, or Williams-Dixon, is going to be asked to play heavy minutes, a lot of playing time, a lot of snaps right away, which is huge for their careers. It would be a whole lot different. This running back room would be a whole lot different if Ryan Day brought in Judkins, had Henderson, and Pryor was not so much Pryor, or Chip Trainum stayed. If it was Henderson, Judkins, and Trainum, my thoughts about this RB room would be very, very similar to what they are with the D-line and the corners. Why? Because they're that good. I think Chip Trainum can work his way and play his way into being drafted in one of the 7 rounds in the upcoming NFL draft in 2025. I truly believe that. I am a Chip Trainum guy. I have seen him recently. He is in phenomenal shape. Kentucky got a good one. And personally, it wouldn't shock me if he got 1,000 rushing yards, if he had 10 plus touchdowns. You're talking about a guy did good things for the Wildcats that could ultimately be a guy getting drafted in the upcoming NFL draft. I don't know what he'll do in the NFL, but I do think in college when he's healthy, he can be really, really good. But he is not at Ohio State anymore. So for these young guys, they get leadership. They're being able to sit back and watch how Henderson and Judkins conduct themselves and interact with the media and interact with the fans and interact with the coaches. They're being able to just sit back, relax, and figure this thing out as they go. And ultimately, I ain't mad about it. I personally think it's great for them. I personally think this is huge for them. I personally think this is exactly what, if I am a youngster, I would like to do. Now, I remember when I was a sophomore at Lawrence Central High School, and I was on the JV football team. Had no shot of playing varsity as a sophomore. And one thing I did was watch all the older guys. Now, let's backtrack a little bit. Freshman year, what did I do? I would always watch the older guys I believe it was Thursday, freshman JV scrimmage every single Thursday. The JV would come over to our practice field, which is only 60 yards long due to the size of the area that we had to practice. The varsity got the 100-yard football field to practice on that was right on the other side of our field. We didn't have turf at the time, so nobody practiced on the game field that was reserved for literally the games. But I remember my freshman year at LC. What did I do? Watch the older guys. Primarily, it was the JV team. Had a lot of sophomores on it. And James Ellis, Nate Murray were two of the linebackers in the 4-3 defense that LC ran at the time. They were the starting linebackers for the JV team. And me being the starting center when I was at LC freshman year, what did I do? I always tried to combat them. I couldn't really out physical them because I was not stronger than them, but I had to use my smarts. But I watched them. Jimmy Ellis, Nate Murray, I watched them. How do they conduct themselves? How do they go about their business? How do they do this? How do they do that? When I got to my sophomore year, especially because that football team, undefeated regular season, 9-0. Sectionals has a 3-round format in Indiana. It was, I forget who they played the first weekend in sectionals. They beat them. Another week in sectionals. I know one of those 2 weeks was Arlington. Beat Arlington, smacked Arlington. Then all of a sudden it was a top battle of top 5, top 3 teams in the state. And I am watching LC, prepare for Warren Central. But I'm also watching Will Glover, Kyrie Abdullah, Dwayne Briscoe. I am watching Spud Dick, and that what literally is his last name. I am watching Luther Rush, and I'm watching Matt Dowd. I'm watching all these older guys. All these guys I was talking about, the seniors. I'm also watching Terry Johnson, who is a year in my grade. He's a sophomore, but I am watching Terry Johnson. I am watching Nate Murray, who started that year as a junior, fast forwarding a year from my freshman year. Watching Nate Murray. I'm watching Mike Mast and Cole Willis, who played college football. Cole Willis did. Sebastian Moore and Jordan Baldwin, or John Baldwin, excuse me. I'm watching all of these guys, how they conduct themselves, how they go about their business, how they prepare for a big game. One guy, not saying his name, I saw him do some things in the locker room that he should not have done, and even said, hey, coach so-and-so used to do this back in the day, and I don't know if he did or not, but this certain player did some things that he should not have done, and literally in the game, you saw the effects of what he put in his body. Y'all can run your brain to think about what he did. I'm not going to tell you. But I am watching everything, and I'm trying to watch and see how are they doing it? How are they preparing? What do they see during the film session? What is going on? What is the coach saying? What are things that they are doing that I can pick up on to learn? Why? Because a little bit later on, junior year, I got to play a little bit more football, hurt my shoulder, which really messed things up as far as me getting on the field more that year. Senior year, same thing. I learned things previously, but my senior year guys are watching me. And I wanted to make sure that I was being a right example and showing the right thing so that when it was their turn to play the football, what do we find? We find that they are doing exactly the things that I was doing that I believed were right. And they picked up on some traits that I had, but also they even took that thing to another level. Same thing with Ohio State's running back room, with Henderson and Judkins being the seasoned vets, playing the football for a long time at a high level. TC Coffey's been there for a while, but hadn't played a lot. He can learn a lot from these two guys. And then Peoples and Williams-Dixon being the newcomers, they can learn a lot from them too. This is a great teachable moment, great learning opportunity, literally for everybody involved. For Henderson, for Judkins, for Coffey, for Peoples, for Williams-Dixon. It's a teachable moment for everybody. And for Carlos Lachlan, same thing for him too. Everybody's learning. Everybody's figuring this thing out as we go along. I like it. I love it. I want more Buckeyes to have this same mindset as Judkins and Henderson as they go into what should be a big year for the Buckeyes. Have you heard the big news about Locked On? And the big thing Locked On has launched, it's the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On Plus, our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. You can follow me on X at jstevens07. Send all of your emails to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked On Buckeyes here on a Tuesday. We'll see you next time.